You can't spend your whole life in fear from what you can't control. Story time, how I met that blue-skinned man. I never thought that I would be saying this publicly until it was common knowledge. But here we are. Anyway, let's get to it. How I met that blue-skinned man. Honestly, I feel bad for calling him a blue-skinned man considering I know his name. I feel mean. It was the summer of 2018, June to be precise. It was the night from Friday to Saturday. The week was very hectic. There was a lot of going out. It was summer. It was school break. I went to bed as usual, and the next thing I remembered that night was coming to and realizing I'm not in my bedroom, I'm not in my house. I was in this space. It was very bright, very pristine, very white. The lights were coming from all over. It was no light like in forms of light bulbs. It was literally like the light was coming out of the walls. It was very clean looking, clean smelling. Everything was so pristine. Like you could have eaten off of the floor. Probably not the best idea, but you get what I mean. And there in front of me was this man. At first, I didn't see his face because he was tall and my eyes were leveled with his collarbones. And he had very nice collarbones, very swan-like neck, kind of like me. That's like the first image that got into my brain and it stayed with me 7 years later. I can still, when I close my eyes, I can still see it so clearly. He was wearing a white jumpsuit uniform. It had a standing collar and it was slightly unzipped, opened. I didn't see a zip. He had this skin that was blue. It wasn't as blue as the man in my painting. It wasn't that blue. It was lighter, and he had long black hair. I didn't see how long because I didn't see his back, but it was very black, very shiny, and it was styled in kind of like a half up, half down little pony. His face was oblong, longer face, very fleshy. He had chiseled features, like he had high cheekbones, sharp jawline, pointy chin, but it wasn't sharp. It wasn't like my features. My features are a lot less fleshy and a lot sharper. His were fleshier and big blue eyes. So he was standing there in front of me and he had this like an iPad, but it was glass. It probably wasn't glass, but it was see-through, so the only thing that I could associate it was glass. And in between us, there was this like a holographic screen. It was bluish, it was long. I forgot one part. When I kind of took everything in, I remember thinking, where am I? And I got immediately the response, Orbital Station. And I got the visual of it with Earth in the background. I didn't feel awe, I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel surprised. It was more like I was aware on some level where I was. It felt like something that I've done many, many times before. It wasn't something I was like, oh, I'm so curious about everything around me. I was more happy to be there. During that whole interaction, I had two questions, and the first one was that one, where am I? And then all of a sudden, without any warning, these blue glowy glyphs started appearing. It wasn't any known letters. They started kind of dropping vertically very fast, and there were like bubbles also, like a video information. There was one that looked like a nuclear explosion. There was one with two men in some type of uniforms fighting, like a martial arts. There was another one with like space scene, like a nebula, and there was the scene that I saw before of the station with Earth in the background. I was just soaking everything in, making the data in my brain. And at that moment, this is so hard to explain to you guys because I don't know if I can translate this feeling. Even though like I didn't know what these specific glyphs meant, I still kind of got the gist of the whole information package was. I don't expect you to understand me. Like, I didn't understand it for a while afterwards. Something about feeling, like how I felt there. I didn't even feel like my conscious mind was, at the wheel, or my higher self was at the forefront. I kind of felt like she was in charge of the situation and my reactions. Anyway, after that whole learning session was done, and I didn't even want to say learning because I didn't learn anything new. It was more like a refresher session, learning stuff that I already knew but forgot. Glyphs disappeared, the screen disappeared. I just looked at him this because he's tall, and I asked him the second question, and that was, can I stay? I didn't want to go back. I was like, I don't want to go back. Can I stay here with you guys? And he was like, nah, you have to go back. I didn't explain why. Just like, no, you have to go back. And I was like, no, I don't want to. And then he kind of, put his hands on my shoulder. He pushed me back gently. I took a step back and I looked down and I saw I was standing in this like concentric blue circle. The next thing I know, I had the most intense physical experience ever, which is so hard to explain because I experienced it from two different facets, but simultaneously. I experienced it as a bodily experience, like the sensations to my nervous system, and as a consciousness, as a soul, as an energetic being from that point of view. And these two experiences kind of overlapped. They happened simultaneously, but they were slightly different. Okay, it's so hard to explain this with words. So hard. I'm not good a storyteller, so I'm sorry. The way I experienced it, immediately I had this overwhelming sensation of tingling. I had tingles all over my body, starting from my chest to my arms, my fingers, my torso, my legs, my toes, my head, my scalp, coupled with huge rush of adrenaline, like going on a huge roller coaster and having that huge drop, and also like the butterflies in your stomach, like the butterflies that you have when you see your crush. It was these three combined together, but for my consciousness it was slightly different. This all happened so fast, but it's just like that moment where things happen fast, but they also feel like they last for eternity. The way I could best describe it is I felt like my body and my consciousness were tethered, but not, they were not tied closely. Like my consciousness was slightly lagging behind my body. Kind of like when you pull a rubber band and you release it and it just snaps right back in place. That was the best way I can explain it. And I just remember the first thought that I had when I found myself back in bed was, this was so exciting, I want to do it again. I was so hyped, so excited. Even more so when I came back then, like when I was experiencing it. And yeah, and in the morning, this was like probably dawn when I found myself back in bed because it was already daytime. I immediately notified the group chat first thing in the morning. Then I went and did my sketches and I wrote it down in my journal so I don't forget, and I didn't forget, obviously. It's still as fresh as day one. So yeah, this is how I met my blue-skinned friend. This wasn't the last time we interacted. I learned a lot about him, and I don't care who believes me, and if you believe me or you don't believe me, I don't care. I don't need anyone's approval. I'm just saying what I experienced. Who wants to believe it? Good. Who doesn't want to believe it? Also good. Let me know in the comments. I'm sharing this as an exposure therapy, and I'm also sharing it because I'm tired of, hiding stuff, especially considering the topics that I'm covering in my art. Who knows, it might inspire someone else who's also experienced something that was life-changing, that was extraordinary, and they were afraid to talk about it. But it's almost 2026, it's no longer 1986. Aliens are like the least weird thing happening on this planet right now. There are some unhinged things happening. Aliens are vanilla in comparison. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Do you want to know more about my lovely friend? Although I don't want to go too much, like too into his personal stuff. I don't want to invade his privacy, but I already painted him shirtless in a bathtub, so I'm afraid that I already crossed that boundary. But that was for art purposes. It was inspired. It's not him. Literally, it was inspired by him, but it's not him. I get a free pass there. Let me know in the comments. I'm really excited to know, and if you have some stories, I know you do. You can try and hide, but I see right through you. I was hiding in plain sight for years, so I'm 100% sure that some of you have some really interesting stories. Don't be shy, it's almost 2026. Let's get with the program. We want to go to space, we want to travel, we want to hang out with aliens, don't we? Let's freaking go. Have a lovely day.